In a healthcare policy overhaul that some are calling the most consequential since the passing of the Affordable Care Act, the Biden administration has announced new steps in reducing the cost of prescription drugs for tens of millions of Americans. Thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, which was signed into law last year, Medicare was given the authority to directly negotiate with manufacturers on the price of some prescription drugs. This week, the White House unveiled the list of the first 10 drugs it's targeting for price cuts. They include medications for diabetes, heart disease, arthritis, and cancer. The effort is Biden's most significant step in fulfilling his campaign pledge of lowering drug prices, and an accomplishment that he will certainly tout in the run-up to 2024. Joining me now is Domestic Policy Advisor to President Biden, Neera Tanden. Neera, it's always so good to see you, and it's an honor to have you join us this morning. Can you just really briefly explain to our viewers how, in previous years, Medicare drug pricing negotiations occurred and why this new policy from the Biden administration is going to materially change those negotiations in favor of Americans?
Well, essentially, their idea that Medicare would negotiate drug prices, the idea and policy around that is a new one precisely because the pharmaceutical industry won a sweetheart deal. Congress decades ago basically prohibited Medicare from negotiating drug prices, although Medicare pretty much negotiates every other aspect of the healthcare system. It negotiates for hospital payments, it negotiates for doctors' payments, and honestly, the Veterans Administration and the DOD have been negotiating drug prices for decades. It's really just Medicare was prohibited until the Inflation Reduction Act. So this is a change that advocates, leaders, healthcare leaders have been pushing for decades, and President Biden and the last Congress got it done in the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah, Neera, I was listening to one of your other interviews, and I noted something that you had said, which I thought was really important for everybody to understand, that Medicare has not been negotiating drug prices. They've been standing strong because there was a prohibition in the law, and you called it a sweetheart deal that pharmaceutical companies got decades ago. And courtesy of President Biden and his administration, the Inflation Reduction Act eliminated it. So, you know, Neera, we went through that list of drugs, and they are impressive. They deal with things running the gamut of blood clots to diabetes to Crohn's disease. And I want to note, actually, the medications actually are treating conditions that disproportionately impact Black Americans, which is notable and good. I guess my next question for you is, when can we expect to see more drugs added to this list?
Great. So this is the first, this is really just the first 10 drugs. Next year, there will be 15 more drugs. After that, there will be 15 more drugs, and then 20 every year. So it's really important to remember that for medications that aren't on this list, they may be on future lists. And this is exactly why pharma has run to the courts to try to stop this, because they know that this is really designed to ensure that not just for these 10 drugs, Medicare's ability to negotiate drug prices is going to reduce costs across the board for prescription drugs. That's the promise of this legislation.
And I'm glad you mentioned them running to courts. Big Pharma has filed at least 8 lawsuits. How is the Biden administration addressing and responding to that litigation?
Well, first and foremost, we make clear that Medicare negotiating drug prices is just an aspect of capitalism. In fact, everybody negotiates prices. What the pharmaceutical companies are doing, or they're going to the courts to ensure that they can charge any price they can get away with. And that is wrong. There is nothing in the Constitution that stops Medicare from negotiating drug prices. We feel very strongly about our ability to win these lawsuits because this is just a basic principle of a free market. And so we believe that these companies will negotiate. And we actually, it was important to say that the drug companies really didn't commit, who were on this list, did not say that they would not negotiate. You know, we expect a full negotiation, and the drug prices, these drug prices, the lower cost for them will be made public a year from now.
Yeah, Neera, I do want to ask on that. You got to love social media, the real-time aspect of it. Somebody just posted on my Twitter feed, why is it going to take long? Why can't this happen immediately? And what is the response from the administration as to that question?
Well, we do have to enter in a negotiation with the drug companies, and it was specified in the Inflation Reduction Act, the time horizon for that. It was a year as specified by statute, and I would say that we are anxious to get prices lowered, but we should also realize that prices have been lowered already for insulin. Seniors are getting $35 a month now from insulin, a dramatic reduction in costs. And importantly, a lot of the private sector has followed that cost. So we hope that will also be true when these prices are public for Medicare. There's nothing that stops private insurers from using those prices so that all consumers can get lower prices too.
So you gotta love a little bit of dark Brandon Nero, the president, taking a bit of a victory lap, tweeting out the following image, pointing out the difference between talking and delivering, juxtaposing this latest policy win against Trump, who back in 2017 dropped his promise to negotiate drug prices after meeting with Big Pharma. Low drug costs have broad bipartisan support, but why do you think it is that Trump failed to deliver any results based upon what he had originally promised?
Well, I mean, we should also point out that every Republican voted against the Inflation Reduction Act. Every Republican voted to stop Medicare's ability to negotiate drug prices. And really, every Republican voted to ensure that the pharmaceutical companies could charge American consumers whatever they want. So it might just be that the Republican Party stopped. The Trump administration from delivering. But I'm really proud to be part of an administration that delivered this real result. Again, I've worked on this policy for decades. There were times I never thought it would happen, and I'm really proud to be part of an administration with President Biden's fight. I mean, this was a fight to get prescription drug coverage in the Inflation Reduction Act, but it was his fight to ensure that this really delivers.
And this is a massive win for the administration because it impacts so many lives in so many different walks of life. So Neera Tanden, thanks for being here and for explaining it. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.